Welcome to the East Lansing City Council regular meeting, Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. We'll begin with roll call.
Councilmember Babcock.
Present.
Councilmember Brookover.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg.
Here.
Mayor Bacon.
Present. Next up, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Discussion. Ms. Watson,
yeah,
did you
sure.
want to take something
Yeah,
off?
thanks. I was going to wait until the consent agenda was read through, but I will mention that I would like to move consent agenda item 3.8 to business agenda 5.2. And that's my motion.
All in favor of approval of the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'll look for approval of the minutes. Regular council meeting, April 19th, 2022. City Council Special Budget Work Session, April 19th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All written communication received by council are posted to the online agenda packet. That's all communication received by 4 p.m. Next up, communication from the audience. If you haven't filled out one of these blue slips, please do, but I'll go first with Gabriel Biber.
Thank you, Council. I just want to reiterate my gratitude for you considering the CDBG award as presented. I know I stated some facts last time. I don't want to take up time unnecessarily. Wanted to let you know that I'm here, and the President of our Board of Directors is also present today. So we welcome your consideration. Thank you.
Would you restate for the record where you guys are from?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. So my name is Gabriel Biber. I represent Haven House at 121 White Hills Drive in East Lansing.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Further communication from the audience?
Yes. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carl Bonadono. I am the Nutrition Director at Tri-County Office on Aging, and wanted to echo the gentleman's sentiment of support for the Council's support of funding for the Meals on Wheels program through the CDBG grant program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Babinski, and I have two comments. Is the Chief or Police Department representative here? Yes. Thank you, Chief. The first is directed to Chief Johnson. Chief, I want to thank you and your officers for the safety and security you provide to the citizens of this community. Without you and without your fellow officers nationwide, this community and our country would descend into chaos and lawlessness. You are the thin blue line between the chaos and lawlessness and our safety and security. And I thank you, Chief. My second comment is to offer my thanks and support to Officers Vieira and Menser. A man with a gun, to paraphrase the 9/11 call made about a man seen with a gun at the Lake Lansing Mire. These officers unhesitatingly responded. They went into harm's way, having only a description of the individual and that he had a gun. They did not know his mental state, his motives, or his intentions, but they were told he had a gun. They went to protect the patrons at that Myers store and the citizens of this community, and for that, I thank them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need this?
If you can grab one of the blue slips, or I think we got it.
Thank you again, Chief. You're welcome, sir.
More communication from the audience? All right. I'll move on to communication from council members. Councilperson Brookover?
No, thank you.
Councilperson Babcock?
No, thank you.
Councilperson Watson?
I'm going to pass too. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Gregg?
I just have a brief note. I wanted to call the community's attention to a mural that's going to be starting downtown. This is the result of work that started within our Arts Commission. It also included some communication with our DEI director and is meant to be kind of the final phase of the commemoration of Dr. Robert Greene. So if you have a chance to check that out downtown, the muralist Nabuye Okoye, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm very sorry if I'm not. We'll be working on it, and you can observe the installation of the latest piece of fine art in our town.
I've got some statements here. Then at the end, Adam, I'm going to take a point of privilege and call you up just to state your activities. I know you got a lot of stuff coming up here. I'm going to force sure after. I'll go. You can wait. I'll call you up at the end. Yeah, it's taken me quite a while to even have a conversation around the events of Monday, May 25th. In these times, you often hear people speak on, patience and that type of thing. I think it's more important that we show great resolve as a community, kind of beyond patience, and that we really lean into this crisis. I'm one who tends to be relatively transparent. If you ask me, I don't really process. I just answer because it's probably right there at the surface. This has been a chain of events that haven't allowed me to kind of speak ad prompt like that in this situation, because it's taken me some time to kind of process it as a community. I live just north of that area. That's where I spend the bulk of my time. That's where we shop. That's where my kids go. So that part of it is very difficult. But in crisis is where usually opportunity lies to make improvements as a city. That's going to be right or wrong, no matter where people feel things fall along those lines. There's no doubt we're going to have a bunch of areas that require healing and working together. I think what complicates those issues, and this is what we've been working on as a community, is the intersectionality of the events that occurred, and it's how two people can see one event and see it completely differently. In this intersection, and the challenge that we have, even in all our efforts to be a diverse community and be a part of the solution, is you have a cross-section of individuals, particularly when it comes to rights and things along those lines that are interpreted in a certain way and codified into law and rules, and people who had to fight for those rights and oftentimes see those rights drawn down. And when you have those intersections, people tend to see and view events differently. I would consider this probably one of the most challenging events of my lifetime, and that's including loss of very close people. I'm a coach, I'm a mentor. I consider myself to have hundreds of sons, and in this situation, both the officers and the individual could all have been my son. So it really sticks with me. But I do want to kind of speak directly as well to our law enforcement. I thank you for the work that you've done so far. Chief's efforts, leadership's efforts, line, all the crew and everyone working to work through this. But just understand. I'll give you an analogy kind of similar to what DPW went through. When there's flooding, when there's an activity in the street, tough questions are going to be asked. Don't take it as an offense. Don't take it as anti-police. Don't take it as anti-anything. The challenge with police work in general for the general public is people know very little about it. I know more about it than I would have known, and I'm a criminal justice major, but I know more about it than I would have known just from sitting with police oversight. The general public and members of the general public know very little about how police work. So some of what is often perceived as anti-police is just confusion about process and things like that. You're talking to individuals in the community who work on a system, on a really strict at-will, black and white, no call, no show world, drawn into a world of really strict rules and other things that they have no way to comprehend how this world of police work works. And I can only compare it to areas in sports. You don't know how a lot of things work until they go wrong. I compare police work, I always compare them to surgeons or judges. You're the long snapper. Nobody knows the long snapper's name until the ball goes over the kicker's head. So that's just kind of how it is. It's a tough profession. It's a proud profession, but there will be scrutiny. It is our job to answer these tough questions, and it's going to be our job moving forward to educate the community better and the region better on how this whole thing works, just so they understand moving forward what is and what isn't. That'll be the responsibility of our Oversight Commission. That'll be the responsibility of us. That's the kind of thing we do as East Lansing. We export change, and we'll do that here. And we have a rare opportunity. We're regional leaders. We actually have the resources here. I talked to Michigan State on some things. We have the brain power. We have the resources. We have the will. We have even had many of the conversations around moving our culture and our values forward. It's just a matter, are we going to take the next step now and use this opportunity, regardless of outcome and the way it goes? I don't think anyone wants to see this play out on the streets of East Lansing, and we will take the steps to move this forward. No matter where you fall in the continuum of these events, I am pretty certain that your peace is either shattered, shaken, or does not have the same orientation that it had prior to this chain of events. We'll forge a new peace. We'll move forward. We'll work through it, but we won't shy away from tough conversations, tough discussions, and things around this. We'll do it together. And I'll just say, for me, as someone who sits in that intersection, it even takes me some time to process some of this stuff. So if there's anyone who felt like I did not speak early enough on this subject, it's taken me this long to process kind of what occurred. And I know we've had a lot of conversation. I'll move forward now into solutions. You'll continue to hear from us as a community. We'll have community conversations around really all of this, because I will not waste this opportunity to move the community forward. We will be talking. We will be present. We'll be there. We won't shy away from this one bit, and we will be that community that exports change, improvement, and the constant seeking of improvement to the entire region. We will be those leaders. So we will move forward from there. We will have public conversations. We will have action. There will be improvements, and we will continue to partner and be transparent. And I want to continue to say I appreciate so far the levels of transparency, but I will also ask that it's a critical incident, that we have critical critique of all actions, regardless of the outcomes of any investigations, and just make sure that we, as a department, a highly professional department, continue to just keep better and be better. And we as a city work to heal. And we'll be talking more about that throughout the conversations. Many members who came before police oversight, that was a big discussion on that, people needing, in crisis, having some trauma, and looking and working through some of those issues. I think that's a real thing. And we will be talking more about that moving forward as a community. I don't want to downplay anything else that's on the agenda, but I think it does it a disservice not to have words on what occurred. But I will close by saying we will find a way forward. We're East Lansing, and we will come out better. Thank you for obliging me. I don't mean to make you step on that, Adam, while we're up here, because I forgot all your activities, and you got a ton of stuff coming up here on the calendar, so step up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I forgot all the activities as well, so I had to look them up. We'll start with Albert Alfresco. We shut down Albert Avenue today. The barricades have been installed, and we're slowly installing the infrastructure. With that said, We do have a lot of new infrastructure coming in, but it will be in about 2 weeks after our grand reopening this Thursday. So stay tuned for that. We'll be hosting game nights again on Thursday evenings in the area. We'll have oversized chess games, giant Jenga, Connect 4, table tennis, among a few others that I probably can't remember right now, as well as the mobile library van's going to come down. We've partnered with the East Lansing Public Library. They'll be there on Thursday evenings as well. Live music performances, we're shooting for at least 3 times a week. Yoga on Albert Avenue 3 times a week. And then we're going to have a program called Takeout Tuesdays, where we're encouraging folks to come downtown and patronize their favorite restaurants and get some carry out. And in doing so, you can be entered into a weekly drawing to win a $100 gift card specific for downtown East Lansing. In conjunction with that, on Takeout Tuesdays, we've also invited retailers, service providers in our downtown area, as well as artists, to come down and set up table tents, market tents on Takeout Tuesdays to provide more visibility for everyone coming down. So a lot going on with Albert Al Fresco. We have Sandbox film series. This is a partnership with Michigan State University. We'll be showing a series of documentaries in Valley Court. We partnered with Parks and Rec Department to help make this happen. That'll be Thursday evenings after game night in Valley Court. That starts June 2nd, and there's a total of 8 films that we'll be viewing. We also have the Skywalk banner program. If you recall, last year we started installing banners on the Skywalk above Albert Avenue. We have some upgrades coming to that, frame for the banners, and a new banner to support a new marketing campaign that'll be launched here in June. So stay tuned for that. We also are doing the K-12 artwork pop-up program. About 350 pieces of K-12 artwork have been installed in the brick and mortar businesses downtown. And they're displayed in the windows, the storefronts, and help draw people down and showcase young local artists. We recently installed the mental health murals. Those are on the south side of the Division Street garage in the alleyway there. There's a total of 7 murals, so we encourage you guys, everyone, to come down and check those out. Next week, we'll be rotating artwork out of the panels at Division Street garage. There's a total of 4 panels, 8 artwork prints from the MSU Broad. We'll be pulling those prints out and then installing those in the public facilities throughout downtown, and then replacing those with high school artwork, which will be displayed through June. And then after that, we'll be rotating those out and displaying artwork from local artists. So a lot of rotating art going down this summer. And then finally, we installed the parklet again today, actually. So there's a parklet that's been installed at Division Street Garage, right where the rotating artwork displays are installed. Last thing at Division Street Garage is the Groovy Opportunity mural, another partnership with MSU. The last section of that, this has been a 4 or 5 year collaboration, doing different sections each year during the art festival. That will be completed this year. They started this week, actually, and we'll finish up during the art festival. I think I covered it.
Thank you, Adam.
Yep, thank you.
Communication from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one item for consent agenda. First, I want to thank you, Mayor, for your comments on a very serious topic in what has been a difficult week for a couple of weeks for East Lansing, for all involved. And I would also like council to add an item, I apologize for not getting this quicker, to add an item to the consent agenda as 3.17 to approve a run-walk application from the South Lansing Community Development Association for the Hawk Island Triathlon to take place along East Mount Hope, South Beaumont, and West Forest from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. If that would be a possible item to add to the consent agenda at that time.
That just require a motion.
Can we do it as of now or as part of the approval of the agenda? Add it now?
Yeah, we already approved the agenda.
So add it, so take it, yes. So make a motion now to add it.
All right, I'll move to add item 3.17 to the agenda. I'll look for a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda amended. City manager?
That's all I have, thank you.
City attorney's report?
I have nothing to report. Always happy to answer any questions.
On to item 3, the consent agenda.
We have the following items on the consent agenda for council's consideration. Item 3.1, approve the following appointments or reappointments to boards or commissions. A, Kathryn Rodgers to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a partial term ending December 31st, 2022. Item 3.2, approve a resolution acknowledging Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Item 3.3, approve a resolution commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Capital Area Transportation Authority. Item 3.4, approve the City of East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission's Rules of Procedure. Item 3.5, approve a site plan amendment for parking lot expansion at 3737 Coolidge Road. Item 3.6, approve a one-year contract with Capital City Janitorial LLC in an amount of $25 per hour for janitorial services for City Hall, the Hannah Community Center, the Public Library, and the Department of Public Works, in a total amount not to exceed the budgeted amount of $507,475,000, and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.7, approve a contract with E.T. McKenzie Company in the amount of $3,817,508 for the construction of the fiscal year 22 utility improvements project in the Bailey neighborhood, and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.8 was moved to the business agenda. Item 3.9, approve a contract with Levitt and Stark Excavating Incorporated for miscellaneous concrete and hazardous sidewalk repairs in an amount not to exceed $75,000, and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.10, approve a contract with Fishbeck for the design and construction services for the drain and basin dredging and outfall repair project in an amount not to exceed $158,500, and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.11, approve the third-party agreement with the Ingham County Road Department for the Hazlitt Road, Park Lake Road intersection improvements project, and authorize the city manager to sign. Item 3.12, introduce for the May 24th, 2022 business agenda ordinance number 1514, an ordinance to amend section 44-372 of the city code regarding the Parking Bureau schedule of fines. Item 3.13, approve a resolution to set a public hearing for May 24, 2022 to consider the approval of the tax increment financing development plan for the Local Development Finance Authority for the cities of Lansing and East Lansing. Item 3.14, approve a resolution to set a public hearing for May 24, 2022 to consider a request to establish an industrial development district per Act 198 as amended at 3400 West Road. Item 3.15, approve a resolution to set a public hearing for May 24, 2022 to consider the approval of a Public Act 198 as amended real property tax exemption application at 3400 West Road. Item 3.16, approve a resolution to set a public hearing for May 24, 2022 to consider the approval of a Public Act 328 as amended new personal property tax exemption application at 3400 West Road. And add on item 3.17, approve a run-walk application for the South Lansing Community Development Association for the Hawk Island Triathlon to take place along East Mount Hope, South Beaumont, and West Forest from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. Those are all the items on the consent agenda for council's consideration.
I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion to approve.
Look for a second.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, can I make one comment? I didn't see any reason to hold this up, but I see our co-chair and our chair for our Police Oversight Committee are here. In all of the other commissions that I liaise to, we have a rule in our attendance that if somebody misses 3 consecutive meetings, we can remove them, and I did not see that in your attendance. And unfortunately, I've served on several commissions that have had to actually invoke that clause. So just consider that you might want to amend that if you have a commissioner that's not meeting their.
I think it might be by ordinance, but I can check, we can actually check on
A
it.
section there which we removed
Okay.
because there is the
Okay.
section of the general ordinance about commissions, and
Got
we
it.
didn't want there to be any confusion about
Perfect,
that.
okay.
So
Yeah.
it's covered. It is covered.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have people taking up space when we have important jobs to do. Thank you for that, Chris. I appreciate it.
Before we vote, further discussion?
I think we did vote.
Oh, we're done with it, okay. Opposed? We did all of it?
Not opposed.
All right. All right, motion carries on the consent agenda. Item 4.1, consideration of primary fiscal year 2023 budget and property tax rate.
Good evening, Council. So we are required to hold a public hearing on the proposed budget as well as the tax rate. So that's what the public hearing is for tonight. Of course, you know we've had 4 budget work sessions. We have 1 more next week. And per charter, you will have to approve a budget on May 24th. The other part that we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, although I highlighted it in the first work session, is the proposed property tax rates. So they are proposed to stay the same as they were in the current year. So that is 12.5362 for the general fund or general operating, 1.825 for solid waste, and 1.9940 for the library. Those assume that we have no Headley rollback. We have not gotten official word from the county, but our preliminary calculations say that we will not have a rollback. If we did have a rollback, it would only impact the library because the city and the general operating and the solid waste are much below the allowable amount. And I have those allowable amounts if you would like them. I don't have anything else unless there's any questions before the public hearing.
I'm trying to figure out what I've got a resolution, and then behind it I have several pages of budget, tax rate, and fee schedule resolution. Is that a separate resolution?
It's one whole resolution, so we attached the draft resolution that would be presented to you on May 24th. That's what you would be adopting. So it's one resolution that has multiple sections of it. The last section is the fee schedule.
But all we have before us tonight is the fee schedule, correct?
Tonight, it's not, so the public hearing is just on anything about the budget or the property tax rate. If someone wants to talk about the fee schedule, they can also talk about the fee schedule.
And this
You
one-
have nothing to approve tonight.
Okay, and then so there would be a second vote on the budget?
On May
I mean, excuse me, there'd
24th.
be a vote on the budget on or about the 24th?
Yep, on May 24th, that whole resolution would be there. So everything that's marked as draft in your packet is the full resolution. So there's multiple sections in there.
Well, why are there no expenditures in here? That's what I don't get.
That's the first part of the resolution. There's a section on revenues, and then there's a section on the expenditures by fund. So it's by function, so like under general fund, you're going to see
I'm sorry.
general
I
government,
misread-
public
I
safety.
misread this. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So just out of curiosity, council, how do we have a public hearing on a document that's not finalized and is a draft? Is that legal?
Charter Section 10.4 requires the budget hearing, and I think that the purpose of the public hearing is for potential additional input, and there's an understanding of potential amendments prior to adoption.
So the answer is it's legal.
Yes.
Thank you.
More questions or comments?
I was wondering how up-to-date this fee schedule resolution is, because there was something I saw off with it that I thought we discussed, and so when was the last time this draft was updated?
I believe last week, so it should reflect the same as what's in your budget book. If it doesn't, we will go and review that again.
Okay.
Was there something particular?
Yeah, it was the marijuana tax. I thought we had talked about that being more than 85,000.
It could be more. I think we budgeted conservatively on what we thought marijuana revenue would come in at, because we obviously prepared the budget prior to receiving our payment in March. So we did not change that amount when we did the budget. In theory, we could increase that revenue and either increase expenditures or reduce the amount of fund balance that is planned to be used.
More questions or comments?
I do have a question again.
Sure, that's okay.
When people complain about their property tax assessment, how is that categorized? Like, how can we understand if people are having an issue with their properties assessed at in the mills, because our property mills are really high?
Of course, people could come tonight and speak about the property tax rate. We have a process when people receive their assessment. So every year, our assessor issues the assessment, a piece of paper to each property that says, here's your new assessed value and taxable value. It also shows the potential change in the dollar amount that would, that value change would impact them based on the current millage rates, of course, because we don't know what the future millage rates might be. But at that point, they're allowed to come in and ask for an assessor's review. So they can come in and talk to the assessor. He will have a conversation with them, consider what they have to say. There's also the board of review. Board of review is held in March, July, and December. So a property owner could also come to them on any of those types of issues. And then finally, somebody could file an appeal with the state of Michigan. It's called the State Tax Commission. Or the Michigan Tax Tribunal.
And is that's all on the website? If someone was looking to, they got their little slip of
Say
paper?
yes.
Okay.
I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty confident it's there.
In regards to millage and the tax bill, is East Lansing, of course, we're the collector of the taxes, but only about a third of the total mills on someone's tax bill are attributable to what you levy as taxes. And it's the CATA, the school district, the ISD, the county. So it's just all collected by us. So it makes people think that it's East Lansing when it's actually a smaller, I don't want to say a small portion, but a smaller portion. So.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We will open public hearing on item 4.1, consideration of preliminary fiscal year 2023 budget and property tax rate.
Are people still zooming in or not?
Is there anyone online? All right, if no one's in attendance or online for item 4.1, I'll close the public hearing. All right, and there's nothing to vote on this item tonight, okay. All right, we'll move on to item 4.2, consideration of a resolution to order the repair of existing sidewalks at 2010, 2034, 2040, 2058 Michigan Avenue.
Good evening, Council. So we are here for this public hearing. There were 4 properties that we sent a letter to on April 4th to indicate that their sidewalk was in disrepair as part of our city code. We have, or you guys have the right to order in the repair of that sidewalk. So as part of this, if anyone were to dispute or had questions, we indicated that we would have the public hearing tonight to be able for them to bring up those concerns. For the record, of the 4 properties that we have sent letters to, 3 properties have responded. 1 property will have the City of East Lansing perform that work. 2 properties will be doing it themselves, and we've not heard from the 3rd one. They have until, I believe, June 1st to be able to reply to our letter. Otherwise, we will consider that the city will do it and charge them that amount for the sidewalk repair. So this is the opportunity for anybody to have comments on that.
On the June 1st deadline, will there be any additional communication between now and June 1st, or are they kind of?
Yes, we will follow up with the owner that we haven't heard from.
Any further questions or comments from council?
Sorry, what's the June 1st deadline?
As part of the letter that was issued to them, we had requested them to provide what they will be doing, if they will be repairing the sidewalk themselves or having the city perform that work by June 1st of 2020.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions or comments from council? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and as part of this, there's a resolution to that you will need to move forward with to order in the repair of these sidewalks. That's part of your package.
For the resolution, okay. If there's no further questions or comments from council, I'll open the public hearing on item 4.2, consideration of resolution to order the repair of existing sidewalks at 2010, 2034, 2040, 2058 Michigan Avenue. If there's no comment, I will close the public comment session. So we need to vote on the resolution.
Does the resolution require a number? I thought all of our resolutions had a number with year and then.
So the clerk will assign the number after the fact, right?
Have we assigned resolution numbers for sidewalk resolution? I think it's for policy resolutions by charter that we have to, but we.
Therefore, I move the unnumbered resolution ordering the repair of sidewalks at the locations included below, which is contained at least my page 506 of the packet from tonight. Relative to sidewalks adjacent to the properties located at 210, 234, 240, and 258 Michigan Avenue.
I'll look for a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries on the resolution on item 4.2. On to item 4.3, consideration of City of East Lansing Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, fiscal year 23 budget.
Hi, Council. I hope everyone's doing great today. This is the same budget that we were talking about a couple weeks back. So yeah, happy to answer any additional questions you guys may have. Otherwise, we can let the public hearing commence.
Questions or comments from council?
I do have a question. The item that Ms. Watson asked that we pull off the consent agenda relative to the contract with Verlinde Excavating and Trucking for the fiscal year 22 CDBG Albert Avenue Phase 4 sidewalk improvements, the amount of $128,330. Is that part of this recommended budget?
It is not, no. That is from the budget that was approved for fiscal year '22, that was approved last May. So we're just getting the contract together with the bidder. The process took a little bit longer than usual because the State Historic Preservation Office changed their environmental review process, so we were working through that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions or comments from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing on item 4.3, consideration of City of East Lansing's Community Development Block Grant, CBGB, BG? Fiscal year budget.
It's like a rock band.
It's close. Seeing none for item 4.3. Does this require a vote tonight, or is that just for?
No,
Is
it's
it?
just a public hearing, it's a part of the budget.
Yep.
Am I correct on that? There's no requirement at this point, just close it.
All right. On to the business agenda. I'll ask for a friendly amendment here. Can we move item 3.8 to item 5.1 and save the, we'll work through that first? That was your. All right.
So, do you want me to start, or?
Yeah, I'll read it.
So, item 3.8, I know that you all said it's fiscal year 2022, but according to my records, in records that you have too, the budget for fiscal year 2022 for sidewalks was 0. And for fiscal year 2023, $150,000 was requested and recommended, which we haven't voted on. And when I turn to my page 129 in my budget binder, Albert Avenue sidewalks, which is referenced in this, is again slated for the $150,000, which we haven't voted on. So I'm still confused about what's happening.
Can you give us the page number again, please, in the
Yeah,
budget book?
so it's page 129 in your budget binders.
Thank you.
That mentions the Albert Avenue and CDBG funds for $150,000. And when I look at what we approved for budget in fiscal year 2022, sidewalks project got $0.
Yeah,
So it does seem like, yeah.
Excuse me, Councilmember, where are you getting this $0 for sidewalks?
CDBG funding history.
In the agenda packet?
No, this was something that our advisory group had in our packets. And so, yeah. I mean, I can show you my copy, you just have to kind of ignore my scribbles.
Yeah, because the records that we have on file are showing $130,000 allocated towards sidewalks for fiscal year '22.
Was that an earlier draft that the council member is referring to, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, yeah.
So you're saying the information that I got from East Lansing staff on the CDBG funding history, where sidewalks project has not been a part of the budget since fiscal year 2018, you're saying that was incorrect?
Yes, but I am not saying that the I'm not quite sure the documentation that you are referencing. Yeah.
I move we defer this to the next meeting while staff investigates the confusion.
Can we, you can't, you have a,
What's that?
Do you have a starting of a project or something?
Yeah, Nicole just mentioned that we're under the timeline to get the contract approved.
So let's, can we take a minute, can we take a quick break to look to figure this out? Can we take a,
What timeline are we on to get the contract approved? Their timeline or our timeline?
It's ours and then also
Okay.
kind of HUD's. Yeah.
So are you, with all due respect to you guys, are you telling us that this particular contractor isn't gonna wait 2 weeks to sign a contract for $130,000?
No, they will definitely
Okay,
wait
thank
2
you.
weeks.
The motion's on the floor.
For a second?
Second.
Were we moving that to date certain? Is that the 24th?
Yes, thank you, yeah.
Okay. Just restate it for the record too, where you're,
Motion to defer to May
is it 24th?
24th?
24th.
Did you second that?
Oh, I'm sorry, second. Yes.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just trying to follow the math. And you all know that I have been asking a lot about how much dollars was designated in the past, how much money are people receiving now. And I received this history that I thought was accurate. And so it didn't make sense to see it on the consent agenda. And then also, it sounds like you guys are gonna spend 130,000? Is that right? 130,000, and then you're gonna get another $150,000.
For fiscal year 23, correct?
Okay, all right.
So do you want to explain,
Thank you.
this is along Albert, there's an ongoing sidewalk project to improve all of the handicap accessibility of these, the corners basically, to have handicap accessible ramps down Albert. So this is an ongoing project that has phases as you do these intersections, right?
Yeah, that is correct. So we're just continuing down Albert, with the expectation to, hopefully get to Hagedorn to be able to repair the most expensive portion, which is the ADA ramps along these intersections, as well as any of the city, kind of city-owned hazardous sidewalk that we may find in between the blocks. So we will evaluate those as well.
Could you tell us the approximate cost of one of those intersections with ADA ramps?
One of those intersections would, probably be in the realm of 50 grand, depending.
So it's a costly item to do the four corners.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, guys. On to item 5.1, summary and status of officer-involved shooting, April 25th, 2022. I'll invite the chief up, and we have representation from Police Oversight Commission. We'll start with you, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Appreciate your allowing me the opportunity to provide you with an update on our officer-involved shooting that occurred on April 25th, actually 2 weeks ago already. I just want to assure the council and our Oversight Commission and our public that we are taking this situation extremely seriously, and we are going to demand a thorough investigation of this incident, and we're going to do our best to make sure that no stones are unturned when we deal with our investigation. And Michigan State Police has assured me that they are going to do the same with their investigation. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we are taking this situation extremely serious from our standpoint. As you know, the situation happened back on April 25th, and then 3 days later, I asked the Police Oversight Commission if they would be willing to hold a special meeting so I can talk to them about the possibility of releasing video footage of the incident up at Meyer. And that meeting was held like 3 days after the incident, and the commission was wholeheartedly in favor of releasing video footage of the incident. And it took us a full 7 days to compile the video, do all of our redactions, things of that nature that's required, and put that together prior to our press conference that we had on, I think it was Thursday. This past Thursday. And the redactions took a little longer than we had planned. Captain Pride was overseeing that project, and his staff in the RIS department worked extremely hard to try and get what we had to get done. So we do our best to make the video available to the public and to be as transparent as possible in what we were trying to relate to what happened on that up at Meyer. We had a press conference, and then on this past Monday, just last night, Captain Pride attended the regularly scheduled Police Oversight Commission, which was last night, and they had additional questions and requests from the police department, and we are in the process of addressing there's some of the additional requests that they brought to our attention last night's meeting. So I'm here to provide council with an update on what we've been doing with that. So ever since this incident happened 2 weeks ago, we have been meeting with our staff and Lieutenant Sexton, who is overseeing our accreditation process, and we have been reviewing all of our policies since I've been here, since January of 20. We've been reviewing our policies, but Lieutenant Sexton has been given an additional task of reviewing the policies that directly affect this particular situation. And he is compiling a list of policies that we're going to be reviewing. Some of the policies we can be reviewing currently, where we do not need any other, we can do some of our own review of those policies. There's some policies that we're going to have to wait to review after the investigation is completed. But we are extremely serious about making sure our policies and our training and things of that nature are in order and up to speed and things like that. As you know, the night of the incident, I was on scene probably about half an hour after the situation, and at that time it was my decision to turn the case over to Michigan State Police for their investigation to ensure a fair and impartial investigation of this particular incident. And we kept the scene contained and controlled until Michigan State Police was able to get on scene. And their whole team, special investigations team, came on scene along with their forensics lab crew, and they took over the scene, took over the investigation, took over all the collecting evidence and things of that nature, and they were finished probably around 1 o'clock that morning. The incident happened around 6:30 that evening. So they took over the investigation, and they have been investigating it ever since. We've been helping them with some additional information. They've been asking us to supplement their investigations. They're still in the process of that piece of their part of the investigation. After the investigation is completed, they're going to turn their reports over to the Attorney General's office for their review, and the Attorney General's office will actually review the case and make any recommendations, charges, or anything of that nature from their office. After those results are completed by the Attorney General's office, one way or the other, we will actually begin our internal investigation of the actions that happened that night with our officers involved, and we'll complete that investigation in a very timely manner. Captain Chad Pride, who's actually the staff liaison to the Oversight Commission, he's actually going to be leading that investigation from the internal standpoint. And I have great confidence that him and his team will actually do the investigation once the criminal piece has been taken care of. And that's where we're at right this minute. We have regular updates with Michigan State Police. They don't talk to us unless they need something from us. And they asked a couple of questions over the last couple of weeks, asked for some materials that we provided to them. And we are waiting to see what they come up with in their investigation. And that's pretty much the update I have right now for you, where we're at with that piece of the puzzle, which is a big piece. And I just want to make sure that the public understands that the reason for the Michigan State Police to deal with that is that it is very important for the community and for myself and I think for everyone involved that this investigation is thorough and done with fair and impartial eyes. And that's what we expect from their work that they've been doing in these type of situations around the state. So I'm open to questions, and I can answer the questions as best I can without dealing with the investigation itself.
Well, thanks for continuing to ask questions and staying out front, and I really do appreciate that. I know it's a very difficult situation to be in, and I appreciate you continuing to step up and just leading and leaning into the situation. Per conversation with the Police Oversight Commission, Captain Pride, on the issue of video redaction and the time consumption around that, I think that's something I'm going to insist or send back or whatever we've got to do functionally to improve that process for your department, both via the software and the ability to insource and outsource around that, because the issue of video in the timely manner, probably, I would assume some advisory is going to come out of police oversight on us having the ability to have it out in X amount of days for any future critical incidents, but that we have the infrastructure and support in place to either insource or outsource for video. So a captain who has tons of other functions in a critical incident maybe has preview to that process, but someone else is doing that process going forward to make that go a little bit quicker. I don't think that's a way to function in a crisis. There's just so many other activities that he's being asked to do and to function within that, and then going and redacting video. I'd like to find a solution to that we have in place or retained, and be it updated software on our side, and then also an option to insource or outsource when we get to that point of redacting video so we can have it out in X amount of time, and we can find that solution together, because I think that's a critical feature.
The one thing that Captain Pride was unable to do it all himself, and we had to actually hire our own, one of our sergeants, who we had to pay him overtime to come in and help us try and get this video out in a timely manner, which was extremely labor intensive. And so, appreciate the support when it comes to.
We'll find another way to do that. There's just too many other functions that we could prioritize if we find another way to get that off of the captain's plate. That just seems that's not tenable moving forward.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just on a follow-up note with that, this releasing video footage before the prosecution with the criminal standpoint and also with the investigation standpoint in the Attorney General's office, those discussions that I had with the Attorney General's office and with our Ingham County Prosecutor's office, that was also labor intensive, because they are looking at the cases from a criminal standpoint. They want to make sure that there's no evidence that are tampered or taint their proceedings in the future. And they had their opinions on releasing video and that kind of evidence to the public before anything was brought to them so they can review. But after long discussions, they realized that it was the importance of the transparency in our community, and that overweighed their need for trying to make sure that those videos were not going to be causing any issues later on. So after long discussions over that week, they understood the need for us to release that videos prior to anything going to AG's office for further review. So that I don't want to put all the blame on the video piece, but there was a lot of discussion. We was trying to figure out what we need to release and what not to try and tamper with any kind of criminal investigation going forward.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think we'll in some way want to codify that so there's not even a discussion of transparency. East Lansing's procedure is by X amount of days, even if it's 14 days, 10 days. It's not even anything that you'd have to decide in the moment, and that way it takes that right out of anyone's hands, and there really is no transparency that on X day they'll expect it. I mean, I hope God forbid we're dealing with something like this, but any other critical incident requires just something in that part of it, because the kind of runaway stuff that happens around that, but until the video comes out is where it really gets where we really lose the ability to even have a common narrative. So I think that's something we got to find a little way quicker and take that out where it's decided and it's in writing, and this is our process.
And the prosecutor's office actually is very concerned about that, and she's having national discussions on this whole issue because it's just not East Lansing. The country is demanding this transparency, and all the communities around the country, she's in discussions to try and figure out what they're going to do with that whole piece of the puzzle. So I think it's an urgent issue and a topic. I think they're serious about them too. Also, make sure it's addressed in a proper manner.
Thank you. Questions and comments from council?
Hey, Chief. I was wondering, before this incident happened, when the black man was shot by police in Grand Rapids, what types of conversations went out to the police staff? For me, at the health department, we received a message from our DEI director letting us know there's places we can go, there's people we could talk to, and acknowledging that incident. And so since, again, it might hit deeper or we might be feeling differently as a police officer, what types of supports were given with the temperature of conversations or communications that might have gone on?
I can't speak for the department from the captain. The captain can answer that question, but I did not put anything out after the Grand Rapids shooting or anything like that. Reference if they need any, like a generalized email or anything like that, any assistance they may require and things like that. Or I did not initiate any kind of discussions with our employees after that particular situation. Do we have anything? No. Okay.
I think on that, to that point, I think being that somehow things can become kind of endemic in the way that it goes, and we had our conversation from Captain Pride when we're talking about the big presentation we had on kind of critical incidents and early warning, that being a big part of the early warning system. I think that may be an area that we look at as well, just that broadly, that was a statewide that had ramifications here in the area, that we do address those things as kind of broad critical incident exposure or something like that. I know because the world's so small now. Ahead of that, that's easy Monday morning type thing right now, but I think that was stuff that came up in our early warning conversation.
So I do agree a debriefing of the incident, because the incident is out there on video. So within the department, when we have a critical incident, we do a debriefing, whether it's a staff that's on the call that day or whether it's a larger debriefing. So I agree, when we have incidents that occur very close to home or in an instance that we don't see on a regular basis, we as a department need to debrief those situations, reviewing video, and basically talking through that situation, because we have a huge disparity between younger officers to senior officers, and those debriefings can help train those younger employees as well as the older ones that might not have been through a situation like that.
I just wanted to add, I know the police officers are tough and stuff, but I'm talking about sitting in circles and checking in with staff and police officers. How are you feeling? Like, what's it like going out now? And so was anyone feeling some type of way that wasn't addressed? Or even now, how are people feeling? And however you feel, you carry that. Obviously, you're going to carry it in your work as a police officer, and just kind of making sure we're checking in and doing what we can to address.
And so I can't speak for after Grand Rapids, but after our situation in April, we actually had put our team together and offered that services to our employees who were involved that night. And they, I think all of the officers elected not to partake in that, but it was offered to them. We had, within 3 days, we had a team up, and we had dates set when we wanted to do that. It's all voluntary. It's not mandatory. And so they opted, at that particular time, they decided not to partake in that. But we plan on rescheduling and offer that again to our employees. Because it is, like the captain said, it is extremely important. And like you said, too, it's something that we feel very important about. In this particular situation, unfortunately, though, because of the possible criminal nature of this investigation, we have not yet gone into a full debriefing of this discussion of this case, because we did not want to taint or do anything to hamper this investigation. We didn't want people to get into the same room, start talking about the case, this kind of stuff, because Michigan State Police asked us, let them do the investigation, and we'll let you know when we're done with it. And we plan on doing a full debrief after they're complete with their investigation. But because of the nature of this particular case, we had to push our regular debriefing back a little bit, because we did not want to do anything to tamper with any kind of witness statements and things like that that the Michigan State Police is required to obtain in their investigation.
Questions. Some of them are mine, and many of them came to me from the community.
Sure.
And you may have addressed these at the Police Oversight Commission, but people haven't seen that.
Sure.
Or just because I give them an answer doesn't mean that it's not the same as when it comes from you.
Yeah.
So the first one is, several members of the community noticed there was no Nixle alert. Why was that?
At the time of the Nixle alert, to notify of endangerment and things like that, and that time, by the time the situation happened so fast, there was no, at the point in time, there was no, the sergeant in charge did not feel a need to put a Nixle out, since the issue was contained in the parking lot. There was no other threat out there to alarm the community and things of that nature. The threat, he was actually en route to that when the shooting occurred. He wasn't even on scene yet. And so by the time he got on scene to control the scene was stabilized, and he felt it was not necessary to put a Nixle out, because there was no other threat to the community at that time.
Okay. Right. Go back to my next one. I was getting texts, all over God's green earth, and perhaps because I live close to there, as does Mayor Bacon and Councilmember Gregg. So I'm not sure exactly what minutes they came in, but people seem to be very concerned. How many ELPD personnel responded to Meyer that night?
We had 5 on duty, and then we had 4 officers and 1 sergeant on duty. After the shooting, I think that's where the community became alarmed, because there was on the radio we had a shooting. There was shots fired at the Meyer parking lot, and it's just the nature of our business that when the words came out, shots were fired, the officers in the area had no clue who was doing the shooting, and all the officers in the area started to respond with the lights and sirens and things like that, which caused the community to be extremely concerned at that point in time. I didn't even know what was going on until the city manager asked me what was going on, and I had to find out, because I didn't even know, because the sergeant wasn't even on scene yet. And initially, when we heard there was, initially when I got there was one officer involved, and then after the sergeant started doing more talking, we had 2 officers involved. So it was moving so quickly. So I think the alarm came with the amount of people going there. So at the end of the night, we had a lot of our officers just came in on their own to help secure the scene and things like that, because they knew they were going to be needing some help with staffing, patrol levels, and things like that. So we had 5 who were working that night initially, but by the end of the night, we had a lot more people who came in on their own to help out.
Okay. Well, is that common for officers to come in on their own? I mean, I've never heard of that before. I'm just asking.
And we've never had a officer involved shooting in the history of East Lansing. And so, of course, when they felt that one of our officers were involved in the shooting, they wanted to lend their help, to come in and help. And so it was just a thing that we knew we needed some coverage in our patrol. So there were some phone calls made to cover patrol, because all the patrol officers were tied up at the scene at Meyer. So we did need some coverage to cover the rest of the patrol, but people were still coming in just to help out. So they just wanted to give their assistance.
How do you manage chain of command if you have officers just showing up?
Yep, and so I was at the Meyer scene, I was in charge of that scene, and Sergeant Wachowski was actually in charge. He was my assistant at the time, and then other staff started to come in, and we started to delegate work out. Actually, Captain Pride was in charge of the station, in charge of getting people at the station. All of our officers were going to the station first to get their equipment and get their new assignments. So the only people who were at our scene were our officers who were on duty and the surrounding agencies who helped keep that scene secure for the few hours, I wouldn't say many hours, but the hours that Michigan State Police had to keep that scene secure to do their work.
Okay. Do you recall what time you cleared the scene?
The
The ELPD cleared the scene?
I'm not too sure what time. I cleared the scene around 10 o'clock, 'cause around 9:45 I cleared the scene due to a press conference that we released we were going to do at 10:30. But I think in Michigan State Police may have been done around 1 o'clock or so in the morning, and so we would have a couple of our officers still there with scene security while Michigan State Police was doing their investigation. So that was my rough estimate what time we cleared finally in Meyer.
Okay. At the time of the shooting, though, we had 5 ELPD personnel at the Meyer, or en route to the Meyer?
That's correct.
Okay. But we only had 4 body cams released.
That's correct. And one of the sergeants, he left the station so fast, and he realized he did not have his body camera on, so he had to come back to get his camera to go back. And so by the time he got there, there was no camera footage of what took place.
I realize this is something you might not tell us tonight, but at some point I would like to know who that sergeant was.
That's correct. I could tell you later. Yep.
All right, thank you. Let's see, what else? Okay. I've read conflicting reports. I've read conflicting reports about whether the police reports were written after the shooting. So who did and didn't write police reports?
Michigan State Police said that they're taking over the investigation, and they did not want us to ask for our officers to do any kind of police reports before they had contact with those employees to get their statements on what happened at the scene. And that was out of their direction. They wanted us to not ask for them to complete their police reports until they're finished with their investigation.
So, and I don't know, which is why I'm asking. At some point, if charges are brought against this young man for something involving his conduct at the Meyer, is that problematic, not having the police reports written until later?
Michigan State Police is taking care of all the reports at that particular situation. They're taking care of any criminal wrongdoings on the police part, any wrongdoings on the individual parts. They're doing a whole investigation on all parties involved.
Okay. Did anyone from ELPD write reports?
We did initial report of a weapons offense because we were sent there.
Okay.
And the sergeant in charge of the investigations bureau, he was the one who just, we call it open up a case because we actually responded up there. And so that case is still open, and that report was open. And a couple of the officers who they did some supplemental reports and things like that, just to what their nature of it, but they were not the primary officers involved in the incident.
So was there a police report written by ELPD? Were there multiples?
There
I
is
thought
one-
I read
there is-
somewhere there were 3, and
No,
I don't know.
I can't speak for how many reports the Michigan State Police initiated, but we have one report on this particular case, and then that report is still open. That was one of our sergeants in our investigations bureau. He opened up the report. It's in his name. And there's some officers who had to submit some supplemental reports to that, but the main officers have not submitted their reports out of the direction of Michigan State Police.
Right, but we talked, I believe, a year ago about changing ELPD's report writing process to each officer writing his or her own report and signing it rather than the combined report. Has that changed?
I don't recall, Captain. I don't remember what's changed in that particular report. Each officer is responsible for their report. They're required to write the report as to how they see the report. It's not like a group report or anything like that. Normally, we take one particular complaint report number, and then their officers, we call them supplemental reports. They all fall under the same, but they're doing their own individual reports, but it falls in the same main body of the report. So they're doing their narrative as to what their actions were on that particular case.
Well, if you may recall, I raised some questions last year about a police report, which is a large combined report. And you talked about one of the policy changes that may come, that you anticipated after some problems with that report, was that each police officer would write their own signed report or their own signed portion of a report rather than the cumulative report.
I don't recall that discussion because it's really hard for our records management to have 5 different report numbers on the same case. It's hard to do that just for capturing. We can't do it. Let's say let's say we got a bike larceny, and so we have 5 officers on a bike larceny. Then we can't have 5 different reports because we have to assign a number to that particular case. But each officer is required to submit their report, and they are required to sign the report or validate that report.
Okay.
That's added to the main report.
That, Chief, I think is actually getting to the point. The point was that after the dictation, does the report come back so the officer can see it? And I think that's the issue that we were getting at in terms of that. But you've just answered that by saying they have to validate it. After the report is dictated, they go back and look at it.
And we did do that from the last time that we had discussion on the report writing, because sometimes the reports were dictated by our person and it just goes to the system. And kind of major cases now, those reports actually have to come back to the officer for them to verify the report, then it was submitted under the same complaint number.
Thank you.
It wasn't being verified before our last discussion a year ago.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, and I certainly don't want to speak for you, Chief.
Sure.
This may not be something you can answer quite tonight, but the Police Oversight Commission has raised questions about violations of various policing policies, and will you be reporting back to us as you look into their questions, or how do you plan to proceed?
It is your prerogative. As we go through, if you want us to come back, we can come back. We can talk to the commission, or we're going to be as transparent as possible with any changes we make. We can do it in this forum, or we can do it in the commission's forum. Whatever's easiest for the public to understand if we have to make any changes, what changes have to be made, and what things we've done going forward. And we can be any venue that you think is best for our community.
Just one last, if you could just humor with one last. The sergeant who forgot to put on the video cam, or the body cam, and that's been an issue for us in the past. And we've spent a good deal of money with new vests to help facilitate the body cams. What is the penalty for someone not wearing their body cam?
We don't have any penalties involved or anything like that, but we do have. It's a progressive discipline kind of, and that's how I have always proceeded with violations of policy. It's a progressive type of nature. The first violation could be something such. Second violation could be something else. The third violation, things of that nature. But each individual employee, it's not the department. It's each individual employee violating a certain particular policy that we have to deal with progressive discipline on. It's not generic. So if 5 different officers had an issue with body camera, and this person never had an issue before, we can't just say this becomes a sixth complaint on the department. It's an individual type of discipline or policy violation, things of that nature.
And all of your discipline is, of course, subject to existing collective bargaining agreements with the various unions that represent your public safety employees in the city of East Lansing, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I think one thing around the Nixle system, Chief, did I just cut you off?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll throw it back to you. You said last question, you tricked me.
No, that was, I mean,
It's a lawyer trick.
It's not a lawyer trick, but we've had a lot of questions over time about those body cams, and we spent, you needed certain equipment. We spent $10,000 on vests to affix them. We continue to hear and we continue to see in reports that body cams are not being worn. And I would respectfully submit The body cams are not just for the public, but also for the benefit of the officer. And I can tell you, as a public defender, when I saw clients, as one might say, acting a fool, it did tend to walk back certain complaints rather rapidly when they saw their conduct on. It works both ways. But we continue to have this conversation a year and a half after the first time it was raised, and you do understand there's some frustration on our part.
I totally agree, Councilmember. I totally
So
agree.
are there consequences?
There are consequences for violation of the policy, but I can't tell you what this one, because that's a collective bargain, it's a personnel issue that, of course, I can't address. But it is a situation we are investigating.
I think I'll come back to the Nixle question. I think particularly when there's an active crime scene like this, I think be in this training or move that priority up to make the Nixle, because I know that it's 6:30 in the afternoon. You're trying to secure the crime scene. A kind of a stay away and an all clear would have been real valuable on that day, even from a Nixle perspective. And I know it's not a catch-all, but if it could have been some issuance to kind of, because we're going to take over the parking lot, and less people kind of coming in at that time might have been some help as they're trying to secure the scene.
Yeah, the council is extremely very valid requests, and we have a media policy, we have communication policy, and all that will fall in and will come into play, and we can easily see something like that making it wouldn't have been a lot of work for us to get a NICSO out. Just at least not. And I guess everyone has different definition of NICSO, because sometimes people want to be notified of an emergency and things like that, where some people may want the information put out just for information purposes only, and that's a communication director question that I guess I don't have the answer for.
The first thing they had to do was rope off, and then you needed lanes for the fire department to come down to render aid. No, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So the more people
stay away from it. Good point.
Or something like that.
Excellent.
I think that would have helped.
Location of blah blah.
Yeah.
Due to an investigation, due to
Ongoing.
an accident.
That's
And we
right.
get them hourly, some of us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Very valid point.
So will policy change? How will policy change?
I haven't seen a NICSO policy or communication policy, but that's one of these policies we're going to be reviewing. And I wouldn't say a handful. There's a lot of policies we're reviewing just because this incident touches on so many different policies. And media and communications is actually one of them. That's actually a very valid one for the community to understand. Why we do it, or even to change the definition when we put NICSOs out. And that's all under review.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Nothing more from me. Thank you.
Did I hear you say the officers showed up because they heard that an officer shot someone?
No, it was shots fired, what came over the radio.
Because
And so of course, the officers did not know. The other no one actually knew who did the shooting. Exactly right. By my understanding of the radio traffic.
Okay. Thank you, because I know, sometimes there's shootings other places, and you don't see tons of cops from different communities coming to that spot.
And sometimes people call on the phone, the dispatch, saying, I think I heard some shots fired in the backyard. And that's a dispatch call, and then we go and investigate that call. But the radio traffic that the other officers heard in the Tri-County area was actually a police officer on their radio saying shots were fired. And so people were monitoring that, so it took a different urgency, because of course they didn't know what was happening up at the Meyer. It was a little different reference how the officers from the different agencies was getting that information.
Thanks.
In my neighborhood, people listen to scanners all day and see so the second that it occurred, they were on their scanners and sitting in garages, and so it was like, so that's kind of that way. All right.
So next week, of course, notification, and that's the city manager, so he knew what was going on way before I knew what was going on, just because
He called me.
Okay.
That's how I knew.
Because of the urgency and the seriousness of what was happening up on Meyer.
Thank you. You're still, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a remark because of our Oversight Commission, unfortunately, not being recorded yesterday. And something that, Chief, you weren't a part of because you weren't there yesterday. Ms. Pride was there, and Mr. Chubb was there. But we had an extensive conversation about why the two cops didn't write the reports. And one of the reasons that was cited was the Garrity case, which just kind of also makes me jump to other wonderings about when an attorney showed up, or does MSP just know to advise or say they shouldn't write the reports. But that was what we were led to believe was the reason why those two cops didn't write the reports. I don't know if you can.
At just a higher level, there has to be an understanding that once MSP takes over the investigation, they will gain all of the information that we put within our reports. That's the way the ELPD puts together all of its evidence it has on cases and ensures that they have all the facts properly recorded. Once MSP takes over, it all goes through their procedure and how they want to make sure that all of the facts and the evidence of everything that happened was recorded. And so there would be the issue of not only would our reports be duplicative, but there's the other issue of Garrity, which gets into issues of potential immunity and a right against self-incrimination. And so it's just really important to understand that all of the necessary information as the case moves forward will be recorded. It's just in a different procedure because it's under how MSP decided to conduct the investigation.
Yeah, this is to Attorney Chubb, Tony. I think more, probably with inside of the Police Oversight Commission, more conversation and around Garrity will need to be had, I think, to give it a little bit more balance. Because I think everyone leaves there, and obviously that's one of those things where just everyone groans when you throw that out there, just to kind of show some balance to as an agenda item down the road to kind of what the view of there's different views on this, obviously, because people went right to their phones and were going Garrity and looking it up, and there's some conjecture about what's protected and what isn't, and there's 80,000 articles on it. I think there'd be a good point of clarification inside of police oversight on the Garrity rule somewhere as they're proceeding with their stuff to understand it better. I think everyone, I know the crowd didn't get it. So,
Certainly, I'd appreciate that opportunity.
Yep. Any more questions or comments for Chief? Then I'll bring up. Okay. Can I hear from our chair and co-chair for the Independent Police Oversight Commission? Either or, if there's any updates or. I know you guys aren't shy.
This is Eric Williams, the chair of the commission. I didn't have any presentation or expect to say anything, and
I just wanted to allow you comments on, you guys made a lot of great requests. If there's anything you wanted to reflect to council, it doesn't have to be formal. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Well, if given the opportunity, I would emphasize what I think is kind of an ad hoc system that has created every time somebody gets shot of how are we going to investigate this. It's different in Grand Rapids, it's different in Ann Arbor. So I would hope that eventually Michigan would develop a system for investigating police shootings that everybody understands and that is conducted independently and not ad hoc. So that doesn't have anything to do with this particular case, but it's a hope for the future. And I think that would be my only comment at this point.
And I'll comment on that. Mr. Williams, I think there's some merit to that. My goal out of all this is to remove the need to make decisions as you come to steps. That's kind of when people, I think the public loses sight when it seems personal or arbitrary or things like that. If it's just laid out and this is what happens at this boom, 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 I think that does help protect the public trust. And I think you're on to something even more broadly, but I know you guys' charge is to help us as a city and a department to automate's the wrong word, but areas that should be automatic or systematic are in place and that we can adopt and move more quickly through the process. I think that's critical. I think you guys have already started with some of those questions, so I thank you for your work.
I'm Chris Root, I'm the vice chair. I could just maybe add one point to what Eric discussed, which is about how an incident is investigated so that we hopefully there will be clarity, there will be uniformity, there will be understanding. I think another aspect that's very important to the commission is policy. So that we have the incident that needs to be handled, and then we need policy review. And there's been a number of statements from the department about when that policy review is going to happen, or if it's going to happen in pieces. I think the commission is here to try to make things better in the city. And someone at the press conference said, police officers are going out every day. And if the policies don't change, if the policies aren't looked at, if the training isn't looked at, it could happen again, which we don't want. So I think there's an interest from a lot of people in the community and the commission to move quickly on whatever policy reviews it is possible to move quickly on, and to get some understanding of what that schedule is.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just probably close out here before we adjourn. Yeah, and that's going to be an important part of all this. We will be thorough in policy review. In the police oversight's advisory capacity for that part of it, you can begin working on, people have cited many policies and things like that to bring in advisory when you guys come to that portion of your work post, as you're working through that and you're able to work to that, whatever areas of agreement and things like that you can come to. Because I've seen this, many members of this group that were in the study commission went around the United States and found things for us to try to maximize and make our commission great. I think that's okay. Again, we want to be the best and most well-respected professional police department in the business, and I know that's Chief's commitment when he came here and interviewed, and that's what he's been doing every step of the way. And I know that advisory and the work you guys do to go out and find us those ideas and suggestions and even rules and different functions and things like that were huge in even forming the commission. So I know the abilities of members of this group. So yes, continue as far as that goes in developing and looking upon things. And even when I was talking, just everyone, in some areas, expedience is important as we're trying to retain and regain in some areas public trust. So we will move quickly, we'll be thorough, and we'll be efficient. And during that time when we can't move as quickly as possible, we'll over-communicate. During those times when it seems to be lulls or anything like that, we'll communicate through those lulls as we move forward. So, right. If there's no further comments or communications?
I would like to bring something back up.
Yes.
And that is item 3.8. I was doing my email research, and I found the copy of the CDBG funding history. And I don't know, Mr. Apostle, if you remember when you all printed that copy for us during the advisory meeting, and it was tiny, like some people talked about how tiny it was. Well, the printout I have shows no dollar amounts for the years that I was mentioning, but I am able to see in my email that the Excel sheet did have dollar amounts that didn't make it. I don't know why. And so I can follow the path, and I do see the 130,000 now. And I would like to make a motion to approve it, if I can do that.
Second.
Okay.
So we need a motion to remove it from the table and then a motion to consider it.
So moved.
I don't think he can make that motion.
I move we remove it from the table and vote on it at tonight's meeting.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I'm glad I was able to multitask, and like I said, the copy that was given to us during that advisory had those blink outs, and so it was just kind of like, what is happening? But thank you, everyone.
As a message to to everyone, that this council sees every penny. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries.
I move the original motion.
Second.
May I ask?
Do I need to restate the original motion?
Oh, I was going to ask what the original motion was, so I think
It's
that
the
was.
one that came off the consent agenda, that
Item-
was put
I'll
on the
do it.
business agenda, so it's a motion to approve
I got it.
the contract for the sidewalk on Albert.
Gotcha, thank you.
Motion to approve the contract for Valdare Excavating and Trucking for fiscal year 2022 CDBG Albert Avenue Phase 4 sidewalk improvements in the amount of $128,333, and authorize the city manager to sign. Look for a second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting adjourned.